Recording. All right, we are. Joey, all right, we are recording. Welcome to the TRRA webinar for January 2020. My name is Kat. I'm the Vice Chair of Texas. Today we're going to be talking about applying advantage. So how to apply advantage in a rugby match, when is appropriate, when is not appropriate, and what can help you set up your game the best way. So just to go over, by law, in advantage, so it's law 7, if a team gains an advantage following an infringement by their opponents, the referee may allow play to continue in an effort to keep the game flowing. So that is what we are talking about today, how we use this opportunity to let the game flow and to let the players play as much good rugby as they can. Also in law, advantage may be tactical, so the non-offending team is free to play the ball as they wish. Maybe territorial, play has moved towards the offending team's dead ball line. Maybe a combination of the two, and it must be clear and real. A mere opportunity to gain an advantage is not sufficient. Once again, that's all just in the law. So first thing we're going to go over, and once again, if you guys have questions at any time, feel free to unmute yourselves and just ask. I will start calling out on people. I've learned I should do that. So tactical advantage, the non-offending team is free to play the ball as they wish. We are going to minimize this and go on to advantage, the video system, not to be confused with advantage, the thing we're talking about. So territorial advantage, first clip, I'm just going to play it. And then, I love you, Texas people, but stop posting the chat. So I'm just going to play it through and then I'll explain it.
Appreciate our minute.
Okay, so Black's running with the ball right near the goal line, knocks it on. Referee's about to blow the whistle, decides to play through an advantage. I now realize this is territorial. I clicked on the wrong one. Dang. Okay, well, we'll talk about that in a second. Sorry. I'm terrible. It's a lot of T's, guys. Give me some slack. Tactical. Sorry.
I think that was for.
And a takeaway by Okpara, who lost it right back. Knock on advantage here for the Surfers.
All right.
Okpara, who scored an incredible solo try at the end of the half in their qualification game against Beantown.
Well, the Sky advantage over.
Okay, so Gold has the ball,
Takeaway by
knocks it
Okpara.
on a bit past the 10-meter line.
Right back. Knock on advantage here for the Surfers.
Blue gets the ball.
There was Okpara, who scored an incredible solo try at the end of the half in their qualification.
And is able to set up some really good play. So they're able to set up an attacking platform, even though if you look, where advantage ends is actually behind where the original knock-on on. So they're not making any space, but they are playing the ball as they wish.
End of the half in their qualification game against.
And they're in a better position to attack. So bringing this back to the scrum at this point, that's not what Blue wants. They've got this massive overload on this side because all of Gold's defenders are out here, and they've just got a really good place to attack. So That's a good scrum advantage gain. They've got the tactical advantage. They're using the ball the way they want to. They don't want to come back for the scrum. It's just not going to make any sense. Very similar, but different clip.
And now Lynch directing through, and it was fumbled. And Orsu gets it back. Advantage for the knock-on. Still in effect. Espetuaho. She is hauled down right there. And a very good counter right there. That was one of the centers, I believe. That might have been Odell or Rosh.
Yeah, Odell.
Same thing. Knock-on happens between the 10 and the 50. They're not really going anywhere.
She is hauled down right there. And a very
but they are able to set up exactly what they want to do. They've got a pod that's ready to take the ball, and they can use the ball as they want. They don't want to come back for the scrum. So bring this all over the place. So that's tactical advantage. They're free to play the ball as they wish, and they're able to set themselves up to a good attacking platform. Any questions about tactical advantage? Cool. Territorial advantage. Play has moved towards the offending team's dead ball line. So that's the one we watched earlier. Black had the ball and knocked it on. Red was able to kick the ball, gain a lot of space. So same thing in this situation. White knocks the ball on. Red gets it, runs, and makes it at least 10 meters beyond where that original knock-on happened. That's a clear territorial advantage. So I want to call on someone. Drew, what do you think, based on this situation on screen, what do you think is going to happen to this red player?
All right, can you replay one more time?
Yeah. Does he have support with him?
He doesn't have support. He's
So
probably going to get tackled, and without support, odds are his ball will get poached by one of the back three.
yeah, right? So since it's just a scrum advantage, that he's gained that territorial advantage. So you can't think too far into it and be like, well, he's really not into a good position because he's going to get the ball turned over. He's made a territorial gain, especially when you're dealing with scrum advantage. That's advantage over because they weren't really going to get that much more with a scrum. So
I have a question about the first territorial clip.
yes.
So based off of where they are, if you had considered, I think it was the black team that knocked it on, if they had a more dominant scrum, would that affect the way you're calling advantage based on where it was in the field?
Yeah, so definitely. I was actually going to come right back to this. Did anyone here play 10? Volunteer now. I won't make fun of you.
Wendy Young played 10.
Great, Wendy. Hi. Okay, so in this clip, when, say you're on the red team, and I call this knock on right here at the goal line, you're the red 10, you're going to have a scrum on the goal line. What is your goal?
I mean, I want to get some space, get the ball out, but I would prefer it to have it from the scrum. I would actually prefer to have the scrum instead of advantage here.
Okay. That's a fair point. So, but what a 10 would do from the scrum is kick to space.
Right.
So, as we see what happens, 10 kicks to space, and it's upfield. So it's a very similar outcome to what you would ideally be getting off the scrum. And what Drew brought up is if red has a really weak scrum, a 5-meter scrum to them, defensive, is not going to help their cause. Because they're likely going to get bowled over, turnover scrum, maybe even a penalty try to black. So the best scenario for them is not having that 5-meter scrum, and that's something you can take into consideration. That's a lot to take into consideration. But my basic theory here is red has done exactly what they were going to do, even if you had given them the scrum. So they kicked the ball. They got some space. They are no longer defending at the goal line.
So, Kat, this is Jonathan Whitefield from Oregon. Just have a follow-up question for that then. What if black has a better line out than red? By giving them that advantage 10, 15 meters from the line, is it not better to give red the scrum on 5 for clearance?
And that's a fair point. I personally, it's that space I'm really looking for. If black has that dominant of a line out maul that they're going to maul it in 20 meters, I'm probably going to lose the game anyway. I'm really just, as the red team, I would rather have 20 meters of space to try to defend than 5.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess the line out ends up being further upfield than I thought it was originally.
Yeah, and that's something, if you're playing scrum advantage and the 10, kind of like Wendy was talking about earlier, if the 10 gets a really bad kickoff and the line out would then be too black at the 5-meter line, I would come back for the scrum. Because what's more advantageous, a 5-meter line out to black or a 5-meter scrum to my team? I mean, they're both pretty bad, but I would definitely want to at least have the ball. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. This next clip, and we're going to get into a lot of the more intense stuff about advantage in the end of this. This is just like the basics. All right. White has the ball, loses it forward. Red kicks. And it goes all the way inside the other 22. Sure, they lose possession, but they gain 40, 50 meters of space. So that's enough. And you hear the theory of kicking away advantage. If you are playing scrum advantage for a team and they kick for space and it boots it all the way down the pitch, it's advantage over because that's all that territorial space they're getting. Okay. Territorial. So play has moved towards the offending team's dead ball line. That's all we're looking at. Clear and real advantage. An opportunity to gain advantage is not enough. So advantages are different. Penalty advantage is different than scrum advantage. 7's advantage is different than 15's advantage. The best way I can demonstrate this is if we watch this clip.
I think that was Burr.
And we're playing advantage. Okay, so blue's got the ball. If you call advantage over right here, you're really not looking at this situation enough. So Gold's knocked it on. Blue's picked it up. Just turn around. Doesn't really know what she's getting into. Runs into contact. Is actually a bit isolated. So the referee here doesn't say advantage is over in this moment because that Gold player gets hands on the ball. That could very easily be a turnover. in which situation you're going to say, you know what, we're going back to the scrum. Blue hasn't really been prepared for anything, hasn't gotten anything.
There was Okpara,
Great.
who scored a
Now Blue has it.
try at the
They've got
end of the half
clear
in their qualification
possession of
games.
it. They've got that clear possession again, and that's when your advantage has been gained. So it's all very clear. It's not muddled up. It's kind of the best way I can explain it. So the most basic way of this is you can't call advantage for a team if they don't have the ball. I see that a lot. I see a team knock it on and pick it back up, and the referee's like, advantage, and then just blows the whistle. It's like, don't even say advantage. So, going into that, deciding to play advantage, the arm immediately coming out does not mean you're playing advantage. So, the second you throw that arm out, you don't have to say advantage. You can just see the infraction, put your arm out, and take that second to decide what you want to do. So you can either play advantage or you can blow your whistle immediately.
Hey, Kat, can you repeat that? You got cut off.
Oh, sorry. So just because you put your arm out doesn't mean you have to say advantage and begin playing advantage. You can put your arm out to show everybody on the field, show the players that you have seen something, and then wait a half second to analyze it, look at the situation, and either say advantage, we are going to play advantage off this, or just be like, you know what, I should just blow my whistle. But it doesn't have to be a trigger that like your arm goes out and your voice says advantage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one trick you can do is put the arm out and say, blue knock on. And you're just acknowledging it, but you don't have to say advantage until there is an opportunity for it as well. So if you have a problem breaking that reflexive advantage, that's one way to do that.
I'm so glad you said that, Wendy, because this clip does that exactly. The referee in question was working on that reflexive. He would automatically do it. So he changed his goals for the match. The second he saw something, he would just say what it was. And that's what led him to saying what happened and then deciding he was going to play advantage off of it.
Now towards this near side again. Knocked in midair.
McDonald.
Taken by Tegan McDonald.
Hey, knock on advantage. All Blues, Surfer advantage right now. Reinhardt driving forward.
Good work there by the prop.
So you can even see that.
Right again. Knocked in midair.
McDonald.
Taken by Tegan McDonald.
The knock on happens. The referee processes the information.
Knock on advantage.
Sees that Blues won the ball and wants to continue playing it. So, okay, now we're playing knock on advantage.
All Blues,
and has already decided that you can actually get some good rugby out of this situation. You don't immediately see the knock on and then say advantage and then they pick it up again. Sorry. So, making a conscious decision that you do want to play advantage, and advantage is the best thing. All right.
Ryan.
Oh, she was picked up in the tackle, but they're saying it was fine.
Yep, because she landed flat. I think it's okay.
Now penalty.
So here.
Ryan.
Oh, she was picked up in the tackle, but they're saying it was fine.
Yep.
Arm goes out.
Because she landed flat. I think it's okay.
Now.
And that second process is, you know what? Gold's not going to do anything with this. I should just immediately blow the penalty. Sorry, I'm coughing.
Kat, can you expand more on why you feel like you should have blown that penalty? What was Green doing?
Sorry, I'm trying to not cough. So Green's offside at this breakdown.
was picked up.
Ball
on
is
the
one.
tackle.
Hasn't come out yet. You see these green players have already overstepped the line and have taken away the space from those gold players.
Fine.
Yep. 'Cause she
So I put that arm out to decide, can I really play
it's not- I
something
think it's
here?
okay.
And I think about where I am on the field. They're defending inside their own 22. I'm really going to, and we call it hoping for advantage. If I were to play penalty advantage down here, I'm hoping gold does something really, really, really cool. I'm not genuinely looking at the situation and saying, oh, these teams are matched up. They have the same numbers. They're working in a little bit of space. Yeah, there's a good chance gold's going to really run down the field. I would just be hoping. I would just say, man, I really hope gold can get me out of this advantage I'm playing. And that's why it takes that second to be like, let's just blow this penalty. And that I will talk about all that later. All right. So that is
How far were you in? This is Jorge. How far were you into the game? Was that earlier on? So you were really setting a precedence on that?
no, it was about 22 minutes in. That was just the position of the field I was in. I looked at it and I was like, there's no way we're going to do anything with this. So, and that all matters. We'll talk about that later. Communicating advantage. Your attacking team might change their behavior by knowing that they have advantage. So you need to be clear and concise when calling advantage. You don't want to mumble up everything you've seen in the world. You don't want to be like, black knock on, under pressure, you've got scrum advantage. Like, I don't even know how many more words you would add, but I've heard it. So you just need to be clear and concise. Scrum advantage. If you want to add the infraction, so you know, so the fans at home know, you can. But the teams really only want to know what kind of advantage they have, because they're going to react differently if they have a scrum advantage versus a penalty advantage. And I will put a disclaimer on this. A lot of the higher level teams will know what they want to do under these situations. I can't promise every team has a plan if they've got advantage. So communicating advantage.
Over there, Life West is being very successful. Someone's
Unbinding in the
unbound
scrum.
from the scrum.
They have the
You had
advantage.
Okay, I'm going to cut that off because I fall in about 2 seconds.
Looks like we're Jen Seaver trying to push over.
Okay, I played it. So in this situation, you've got a scrum near the goal line. The Life West players know that they're winning in that scrum. So they're not going to do anything until they know that they have penalty advantage, because then they know that they basically have, quote unquote, free play to try to score a try. Because 5 meters out from the goal line, if I start playing penalty advantage, they do not score a try. I will be coming back for that penalty. So in this situation, I call penalty advantage. The number 8 who has the ball under her legs doesn't hear that I'm calling advantage. So she kind of looks at me. That's why I repeat it. And when I repeat it, that's when she unbinds. Man, sorry guys. That's when she unbinds and tries something else. She knows she's got that penalty that they can come back to if they don't score. That's when she's going to go.
Looks like we're trying to.
Because best case scenario, they can score down there. Worst case scenario, I come back for the penalty advantage, which is a 5-meter penalty right in front of the uprights. So communicating that advantage, it's not just for you, it's for the players. So they know what's going on. All right. Any questions so far? Because I'm going to get into some numbers.
Yes, Patrick here. Verbalizing advantage. Is it assumed that if you say advantage only, it's a scrum advantage, or is there a consensus on that?
I'd like to hear opinions. Anyone? Anyone?
This is Jorge. I'd be in a sense if you're saying scrum advantage or penalty kick advantage. I hear the teams that are receiving the advantage appreciate it more. Does that answer your question, Patrick?
Yes, it's clear. More clear, let's say.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I call advantage, it doesn't actually mean, for me, it's like, if I say advantage, it's probably been a clear and obvious infringement that the teams would know what they've got.
It's just, I'm trying to get rid of 6 syllables down to 3.
Yeah, I would say if it's like a very clear knock on and you say advantage, everyone's like, yeah, that's for the knock on. It's when it's like a ruck infringement. If it was a poach attempt in the breakdown and the team lost it forward, I would be pretty clear at, it's a scrum advantage, because when it's a breakdown area, they probably don't know what it's for, especially if it's like a knock on in the breakdown by the opposing team who's trying to poach the ball. Like that's when you need to clarify, and they're like, oh, okay, versus like any other breakdown infringement, it's probably a penalty.
Yeah, I guess so. For clarity and game management, it's better to verbalize the whole sentence phrase.
Yeah, unless it's clear and obvious. Unless it's like, some of those knock-ons were pretty bad. Cool. All right, so advantage versus game continuity. So we talked in the beginning how you can utilize advantage in the law to encourage a flowing game. That doesn't always mean playing more advantage is better. So I've got, can I go back? 2 scenarios for you. In both games, 80 minutes is your game time. Your ball in play, which takes out any time after you blew the whistle, you're all walking to form a scrum. Before the ball's put in the scrum, you're forming the line out. Ball's been kicked to touch. After a try's been scored, you're gearing up for a kick. All that doesn't count. So World Rugby's done stats, and we're going to say for the purpose of this exercise, your ball in play is 35 minutes, which is probably high for a lot of the club rugby we're seeing. Is pretty on par, though, for like MLR World Cup. So you've got 35 minutes of action, real ball and play action. And then we're also going to say your average length of PK advantage, so penalty kick advantage, is about 30 seconds. That's just what we're using for this exercise. So we've got 2 different games. In game 1, every opportunity the referee gets to play penalty advantage, they're going to play it. In game 2, the ref is barely playing penalty advantage. So most of the time they're seeing an infringement, they're immediately blowing it. So penalty advantage game 1 is played 14 times and it's gained 4 times. Percent of advantage gained is pretty low. It's about 30. In game 2, they only played the advantage 3 times, but they gained it twice. Advantage gained was about 67%. So that's awesome. Cool. Numbers are fun. Who loves numbers? So, but when you look at this, in game 1, the time spent playing penalty advantage is 7 minutes. And if you're only going to gain penalty advantage 4 times, that only takes 2 minutes off. So you spent 5 minutes playing rugby that didn't matter. You made these players run all over the field just to say, nope, you know what? We're going back for the penalty kick, which is a lot of effort for moving nowhere. Versus game 2, spent a minute and a half playing penalty advantage, and you gained it twice. So the time that you spent playing advantage that wasn't gained, that you had to go back for the penalty kick, is 30 seconds. So I put this into rugby that counts, is rugby that's actually giving you something, as opposed to playing. Nope, we're not going anywhere, back to the penalty. Game 1 is only 30 minutes. Game 2 is 34 minutes and 30 seconds. So imagine the frustrations of a player that is playing a lot of really hard rugby just to be told, all that doesn't matter. Let's go back to that thing that happened 30 seconds ago, 45 seconds ago. And like I said, that was an average, maybe a minute ago. What do you think's better, playing advantage every single time a penalty happens, or deciding when's really the best time to play advantage and getting more rugby in? Numbers. So when you're approaching a penalty or a scrum, when you're approaching a situation where a team is infringed and you have the opportunity to play advantage, you kind of have to ask yourself, am I sending a clear message to these players? If you're at a breakdown and a player isn't rolling away, if you blow the penalty right then, is that a better message than playing advantage and 30 seconds later running back to that random part of the field and saying 4 black wasn't rolling away, versus blowing your whistle and saying, you there on the ground blocking the ball, you need to roll away? Because everyone can see that guy on the ground, sees what he's doing and says, yeah, that's pretty stupid. Versus, okay, breakdown, okay, pass, okay, let's line up on defense, something happened, we're going back, there was apparently a penalty over here, I don't remember what it was for. So are the players going to learn from that advantage? Are they going to remember even what happened? No. I'll tell you that right now. They're not going to remember. They have no idea. And are you adding to the game? Is that extra time that you're making the players run around the field that you're eventually going to come back to the penalty? Is that adding to your match? Is that really making it flow better just because they're playing more rugby? Those are all things to consider. In the moment, that's easy. Okay. All right. Group vote time. Do we think that was a good place to play advantage? Do we think that was a good advantage to play?
No.
No. Why do you say no, Wendy?
Was hopeful. Yes, these are high-level teams. They look fit. They look good. But immediately, Red was under pressure.
In the middle of the field?
Yeah, Black, it was 2-on-1. They almost held him up until he had to come in and mitigate it.
Okay. Jono says no. What does anyone else say? Anyone?
I think I can be swayed either way. I think I'd need to know more about the teams. I mean, as Wendy said, it's pretty wide out where the infringement happens. So arguably, you could say yes because they're not in a great position, but you could also say no. Again, depending on scrum domination or not. Maybe just blowing up straight away is enough of a reward for Red to get the scrum 5 meters in and set up a solid platform to attack because they are in the middle of the field.
Sure, absolutely. I think that this is a fine place to play advantage because I think black knocks the ball on, red recovers it, you've got a tackle. Red has very clean ball, and they've got good space to play in, and they just, don't get the ball back. They've lost it. It is scrum advantage, so you have a bit more leeway with scrum advantage. If this was a penalty advantage happening at midfield, I would not be playing advantage off of it because black is so well set up on defense, and you're really just hoping that red can do something. They have no evidence that they can. Scrum advantage is different, though. So really, because that tactical element we were talking about, just them having that possession and putting a couple of phases together is enough to make that advantage be gained. So, like I said, but then you have to consider, say, black has a really dominant scrum, like we've addressed before, or red has a really dominant scrum. If red just has a dominant scrum, they probably want to scrum all day and get penalties. So maybe all they want is scrums. All right. Let's watch this one. All right. So, firstly, if anyone saw that clip fast enough, what are we playing advantage for? Parker, what are we playing advantage for?
Can you play it again because it's actually quite jerky?
Yeah. I find if I don't have the best internet, I pull it up on my own computer and watch it. It's right in that infringement. And it's hard because the camera shifts.
Is that a high tackle?
High tackle, okay? So, firstly, he's playing advantage on foul play, which is not the best, but where are we on the field? At the goal line. I'll answer that. Goal line's right there. So it's not blatant and very serious foul play. It's just over the shoulder tackle, so we start playing advantage for it. Right near the goal line. He's over the goal line. Ball is held up in goal, so we're going to come back for the penalty. Yeah, so Wendy commented in there, it's a really good advantage because what do people come to rugby games to see? They see tries. Because you're right by the goal line, there's such a good chance black is going to score a try here. So penalty advantage, it's a great place to play it here. You're like, yep, hopefully I'm going to get that try. You don't get the try. Okay, you really haven't gained anything from this because just like the situation we saw off the scrum, you're going to get a penalty at the 5 meter anyway. So you bring it back. So I think that's a fantastic place to play advantage. All good things. Okay. Let's watch this one.
Yep, and there's someone down, and is that Jacoby? That might be Jacoby. Is it Jacoby or Cohen Price? Very slow to get up. They play on.
Jacoby's up.
Jacoby is up. It was Cohen.
Okay, who remembers what the penalty advantage was for? Anyone?
Was it some kind of breakdown violation way back there on the 8 meter mark?
Jared?
Probably no one.
it's not very clear, right? And as both spectators and possibly as people playing in the match, I've already stopped focusing on it because it wasn't the most clear and obvious thing in the world. So and then the ball's moving back, so I'm no longer thinking about it. If you look at the infringement itself,
And there's someone down in his section.
it's probably a side entry there by 19 blue, which is a totally fair call. But had the referee blown the whistle right then, everybody on blue would have understood what that was for, as well as the fans watching. All been like, come on, Sarah, get it together. I don't know what that player's name is, but like, come on, Sarah, don't do that. And everyone else is like, probably shouldn't do that next time. But
That might be Jacob.
I understand Green has good ball here, but you're 40 meters out. You're probably not going to make that kick. You're over near the touch line. I mean, this is very hopeful that something great is going to happen.
Very slow to get up. They play on.
And now you've gone back 15 meters, so you've got to blow the whistle and come back for the advantage, at which point everyone's forgotten what's happened. And now all this time is wasted because Green has to get the ball all the way back to the mark. So just because you can play advantage, because yes, Green does have good, clean ball right there, doesn't mean you should be playing advantage. Make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Yeah. So a pro of blowing this is that 19 is going to know exactly it was her fault, and everyone else is going to know what she did we shouldn't do. Cool. So am I sending a clear message? If we look through the checklist on that, am I sending a clear message on that one? No. Will the players learn? No. Am I adding to the game? Was that 10 seconds of play we watched after the advantage started really adding to anything? No. So maybe don't play advantage. Having the immediate penalty kick versus playing the advantage. What teams can get from a penalty kick? Points. So if they're anywhere within the 22, you can guarantee basically that, like I like to preface again, with a higher level team with a good kicker, they get 3 points on a penalty goal. They can get their own line out 30 meters upfield. So that's key. If a team is going and it's a penalty advantage and they kick upfield, it's the other team's line out. And if it bounces out, yeah, it's the other team's line out 30 meters upfield, versus if you had just blown the penalty, it's their line out 30 meters upfield. And they have a really good attacking platform. So if they're 5 meters out from a goal line, they can have a 5 meter scrum. They can have a 5 meter line out. And, teams all have attacking strategies, how to score points off of 5 meter scrums and line outs. So when you're playing advantage, your idea is that something equal or better to what the team would gain from a penalty kick is coming. So if we go back to this clip,
Yep, and there's someone down in his section.
Any rugby players right there, what would they do on a quick penalty right there? Oops. Anyone that used to play? Anyone that pretends they used to play? Anyone that wishes they still played?
As a former 9, I'd just pick the ball and run straight at the nearest player and try and milk another 10 meters.
Yeah. 3 people wrote tap and go. Great option. I know some teams with big forwards would kick 30 meters upfield, have a line out, their own line out inside the 22. Business for that. But yeah, a really good tap and go right there. You could get some more space. Catch your entire blue team is within the 10 meters. So by letting that advantage play, you're taking that ability away. Now all they can do is kick, and if they don't have a great line out, you're going to give the ball over to the blue team again. So are they going to get anything better than they would on a penalty from this advantage? No. And if they do, it's because you're hoping advantage is going to come. You're not actually using knowledge to be like, oh, this is a great place to play advantage. All right, so this is probably my favorite advantage clip of the night, and no, it's not me. So. All right, I'm going to play it through once, and then we'll go over. All right. So we're inside the 22. We're in the middle of the field. Black player is offside. You can hear the referee, you see her as the camera pans, puts her arm out and says, penalty advantage. She even says offside, so what it's for. That's great. You can add that in there. White now knows that they've got a penalty advantage. So they know that either they're basically going to score or they're going to come back and have the ability to kick for 3 points. Now, because this advantage has been communicated clearly, they're going to change their behavior. That 10's going to do a chip kick ahead. White 14 gets an opportunity to recover that ball. If White 14 gets that ball, scores a try, great. Your advantage did everything it needs to do. But White 14 doesn't get the ball, so it's back for the penalty. Everyone knows that it's going back for the penalty. The black team isn't even surprised by this because they know if you're going to give a penalty inside the 22, basically the other team's going to get points off of it. So this is probably my favorite utilizing advantage clip we've got because the communication leads to the team changing behavior on the attack. They get a chance to do something better than the penalty would have given them because a quick penalty right there, they're going to go for points. They're going to slow it down and go for points, and they got 3 points. Versus playing that advantage gave them the chance to do something that probably isn't going to work, but they know they've got a safety net. If it doesn't work, they can just come back for it. So probably one of my best advantage clips. My best, not my best. And yeah. So when not to play advantage, I didn't want to add clips on this because it, never turns out great. Foul play, unless, like we talked about in the clip where you're 5 meters from scoring, and even then, don't do it on serious foul play. You don't want to play advantage on foul play because the players need to know that you've seen what's happened, and they need to know that you're going to deal with it appropriately. If you have a player high tackle someone and you stick your arm out and say advantage, that player's going to be absolutely furious that they're not getting a penalty for that advantage. Likewise, that message isn't being sent to anyone on the field that you're penalizing high tackles. So if you've got a dangerous tackle, just blow the whistle and be like, no, not today. That's not happening. What else? Safety issues. If you're in a scrum and there's players being driven in the air, if anyone's in an unsafe position, do not play advantage off of that. Top priority in a game is safety. So don't let one team continue to do what they're doing because they want to win at the risk of the other team's safety. You're supposed to keep the game safe, just blow the penalty. Safety and open play as well. If you've just got an unsafe situation, prioritize that. Just blow the penalty. It doesn't matter. Like, it's really the top priority. And then under pressure, if a team is under pressure, like inside their own 22, you're never going to play penalty advantage inside the 22. Scrum advantage, maybe, depending on, like we talked about earlier, how good their scrum is. And like in the situation of the kick, if they kick it and it only goes 5 meters, they've been under pressure the entire time. If it goes 30 meters, okay, that's probably what they were going to do from the scrum anyway. You can say scrum advantage is over. But under pressure, you just don't want to play advantage. The team's stressing out. They just want to reset. So closing thoughts before we go to questions. Recognize and react to the infraction by putting your arm out but not immediately calling advantage. If you need a trigger, put your arm out and say what happened. Blue knock on. You guys can't see it. I just stuck my arm out. I was demonstrating it. Blue knock on. Look at the situation. Oh, look, gold has the ball. The gold player with the ball has a bit of support. Cool. Advantage. Does the team have a clear and real opportunity to gain something better than if you immediately blow the whistle? 9 times out of 10, blowing the whistle is the better option. I don't know why we all play so much advantage, but a lot of the time the better option is blowing the whistle. If you're within about 35 meters of the goal line, especially with penalty advantage, start playing advantage, because you can likely score a try off of that. And if you can't, you can come back to it, and that team can then decide what they want to do. Get a 5-meter line out, kick for points. And then what's going to help the game more? What's going to help the players understand what you want from them? It's probably showing them in real time. We were talking about number 19 at the ruck. Don't do that. Versus advantage, come back, 19 blue and from the side. And you're like, I don't even know who 19 blue is. Okay, so what's going to help the game more? It's probably not playing a lot of advantage. Cool. Does anyone have any questions? I know there's so much that wasn't able to cover that I did want to cover, just because advantage is a lot. But is there anything anyone wants to ask?
I do.
Patrick, go ahead.
Advantage applies anywhere in the playing area, correct?
Yes.
So let's say an attacking player carries the ball in goal, knocks on, ball goes over the dead. Drop out?
A knock on it in goal is always a knock on.
It's not advantage then.
I guess not. But the easiest way that I remember it as knock on an in goal is always a knock on.
Okay.
Like, you might be able to play some sort of penalty advantage in the in goal. So I wouldn't put a blanket statement on no advantage in the in goal. I would just blanket statement a knock on in the in goal is always a knock on.
Hey guys, Jared here with a thought on that. Well, I definitely want to agree with Kat on don't want to make a sweeping statement saying this is always right or wrong. How often would there be a situation in the end goal where one team wouldn't be under significant pressure? And when would it not be more advantageous to pull people out of the end goal and have the infraction dealt with in the play 5 meters from the goal line? Assuming I understood your scenario correct.
No, I think his scenario is if I'm going into my own angle, I knock the ball on, and then I'm the last person that makes it dead, the best option from that would be a 22, the defending team, because that's as far away from the angle as they can make it. But a knock on in the angle is always a knock on.
There's always a
Because
scrum.
the theory is you're not going to give – if I go into the angle and I knock the ball on, you're not going to give the biggest get-out-of-jail-free card to the defending team. Because if I knock it on, technically the defending team can kick it dead. I still brought it in. You're not going to give them a 22 dropout because I just knocked the ball on.
What about if they touch it down?
A knock on in the angle is always a knock on.
Right. I know that's how it's refereed. I was just wondering if there was a legal reference for that.
No. I mean, Mark might be able to help me a little better on the legal reference to that. Like I said, it wouldn't be no advantage in the angle because you can play penalty advantage in the angle and advantage for other things. But
can I say something there, Kat?
yeah, Tim, please.
What Patrick is asking there is trying to gain advantage from law as opposed to the philosophy of advantage is for a player to do something creative to gain advantage. Or if you knock the ball on and it shoots out to 22, that's trying to gain an advantage out of a law book. Where picking that ball up and running 50 meters up the field, you've created your advantage. So the rule of thumb is a knock-on is always a scrum in the in-goal area. It's never going to be a 22, but the philosophy is advantage is here's your chance to do something, not here's your chance to take out a law book and gain advantage.
That's a fantastic point.
Thanks.
Same as those players that are trying to back out of those lineouts, eh? Wendy, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I think this is really good, Kat. I just would have a statement about your comment for why referees play advantage so much, and I think it's because we're trying to be empathetic. But I would say there's a couple of factors, and you probably could have gotten to this, and you would have had to cut some other things out, so you probably wanted to get here, Kat. But I would just say that if your penalty count is pretty high, one of the first things you can look at is how many times you're playing advantage, because you're not setting a standard and the players are not understanding what you want. So if you play advantage a ton, yes, you're being empathetic, you're quote unquote letting the game flow, but you are not managing a rugby game. You're just managing people on the pitch and just hanging around. So think about advantage in that way. Use it as a tool to use advantage as a tool to help score tries, but it is not a way to set standards. You have to blow your whistle to set standards. So when Kat was talking about blowing your whistle, that's your first opportunity, it's what you want to do, I would wholeheartedly agree that we want to blow the whistle first and then think about playing advantage less, like 2 to 3 times a match, and that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. That's exactly what kind of sparked my whole idea of giving this presentation is that theory. So thank you. Anyone else? Last minute questions? I don't want this to go too long, but we're about at an hour, which is perfect. So
No, it was good, Kat.
thanks, Bob. Hi, Bob. We had a lot of people come in from outside of Texas, so I was really excited that you guys joined in. Thank you.
Anytime.
Cool. Is everyone good? Everyone's going to go out. They're never going to play advantage again. They've been terrified and scared them enough. Can't wait. All right, awesome. Well, I will cut the recording on this, and I will send this out to everyone in the TRRA, and then I will send it out to those of you that have jumped on as well from other societies, and you guys are welcome to share this to whoever. Thanks for coming on. Everyone have a good evening.